Welcome to Season 5 of Public Health on Call, a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm Joshua Sharfstein, Vice Dean for Public Health Practice and Community Engagement and a former health commissioner here in Baltimore, Maryland. Our goal with this podcast is to bring scientific evidence and experience to shed light on critical health issues. If you have questions or ideas for us, please send an email to publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Smith Rogers, producer of Public Health on Call. Depression, anxiety, suicide. Today, the topic is America's mental health crisis. Dr. Josh Sharfstein speaks to Kristen Link-Young, the Deputy Assistant to President Biden for Health and Veterans Affairs. They discuss the president's mental health agenda, including expanding the workforce, improving access to care, and prevention. Let's listen.
So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're excited at Public Health on Call to welcome Kristen Link-Young, who is an advisor to President Biden on mental health issues. The president, as part of his Unity Agenda, announced a strategy to address our national mental health crisis. Thanks so much for being here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So why is the president focusing on mental health now?
So I can certainly start with the statistics, which are incredibly alarming. 40% of American adults now report symptoms of anxiety or depression. Among young people, 1 in 3 high school students report persistent feelings of sadness. 51% of adolescent girls are reporting struggling with mental health challenges. These are alarming numbers. We've seen increases in emergency department visits for suicide attempts. Any metric you look at shows really alarming and worrying trends. But it's not just about the numbers for the president or for us at the White House. The last 2 years have been hard. We all know that. We have all experienced the challenges of recent times. But even before the pandemic, so many people had stories of their own difficulty in accessing and receiving needed mental health care or struggling to help loved ones find the care they needed. This is an incredibly pressing public health concern. It's something that we take very seriously and something that we see as a major opportunity to improve Americans' health and well-being.
Well, you have touched on several really important dimensions of mental health, affecting young people, causing suicidality, enormous anxiety, depression. Where do you get started? How do you think about putting together a national agenda?
We really see there being 3 primary areas that we can focus on to invest our efforts and invest our resources in improving Americans' mental health. The first is building workforce and system capacity. We don't have nearly enough providers able to offer mental health care in this country, and the providers that we have are not diverse and not located in the right areas to the extent we need them to be. And so we need to expand the workforce and we need to invest in provider capacity to deliver care. That means more psychologists and psychiatrists, but it also means more peer support workers and community health workers, better infrastructure for community-based crisis response, a wide variety of investments in building the size and diversity of our mental health capacity and our mental health workforce. The second place we see as a major area of needed investment is breaking down costs and other barriers to care that can make it difficult for people to access the services they need. In this country, having an insurance card doesn't always mean that people have access to comprehensive mental health care, and that needs to change. In 2008, President Bush signed legislation that established an idea called mental health parity. Insurance companies should be covering mental health services at parity with physical health services. But we haven't done enough to make that law a reality. We need to build on and expand mental health parity and ensure that cost is not a barrier to accessing care for people in this country. We also just need to make it easier for people to access mental health care. It needs to be more convenient and familiar to get the services that you need to stay healthy and well. And so we're focused on strategies that can improve that convenience and familiarity. The third lever that we think about as really important in strengthening the mental health care system is around prevention and resilience. We need to make sure that our entire social safety net prevents mental illness from forming in the first place and supports people as they recover. So that means investing in protecting our youngest brains from the stress and adverse childhood experiences that can cause mental health challenges in the first place. And it means making sure that we have a trauma-informed safety net and are equipped to deliver and respond to mental health crises across our safety net. So those are sort of the three primary areas that we're really focused on.
That's an ambitious agenda. I want to ask you about a couple of the specific items, starting with 988. 988 kind of cuts across those different areas, but could you talk a little bit about what that is?
Absolutely. No. And thank you for that question. I think this is an incredibly important aspect of our agenda and the work to come. So starting this summer, for the first time, from any telephone in America, you'll be able to dial the digits 988, just like you can dial 911. And when you dial 988, you'll be connected to trained crisis response personnel. So people who are experiencing suicidality or any type of mental health crisis can dial 988 and have an immediate connection to somebody who is trained to help them respond. This is a really needed piece of the mental health infrastructure in this country that will make it much easier for people to get a foot in the door and an ability to sort of begin to access our mental health care system in times of the most acute crisis. We are excited to launch the system and deliver it to the American people. But launching 988 also means building out the crisis response infrastructure that people have access to. So it's not just about having somebody to call. It's also making sure that in communities across the country, there is somebody to respond, that there are crisis responders who are equipped to help that person navigate their immediate crisis and get connected to longer-term services that will enable them to begin their path to recovery. And so it is an ambitious and exciting undertaking that will begin this summer and something that we think will really make a difference in the way people in crisis experience the mental health system.
And maybe call 988 so you won't have to call 911.
Exactly. The goal here is that people will be able to call 988 so that they don't have to call 911.
We've seen during COVID that the access to care in some respects has actually increased to the extent that people can log on, see their therapist by telephone, for example. And I remember reading one op-ed which said, in the old days, I had to go to the ER when I was really in trouble. And that was just the most traumatizing experience, to sit in the waiting room, to just be seen for like 45 minutes and then triage, versus just immediately being able to get help right from my own home. Talk about what the administration or what Congress can do to make it permanent, that people can have easier access to tele-mental health.
You're absolutely right to call attention to this. One of the silver linings of the way healthcare changed during the pandemic is that people have developed a new familiarity and comfort with receiving healthcare services via telehealth. More providers are equipped to deliver it. We've learned a lot about how to successfully give people access to healthcare via telehealth. And a lot of people find, just as you said, that it is just more comfortable to receive mental health services from their home using a telehealth platform. So I don't think we're going back to the way things were before. I think we will continue to see many, many mental health professionals who deliver a significant portion of their services via telehealth. The infrastructure is now there. We've also seen a huge amount of investment and experimentation and innovation in new platforms for delivering telebehavioral health services, new apps and new types of delivery platforms. Those have really tremendous potential to expand our capacity to deliver care. But there's also a lot we don't know about the evidence base and how well these technologies work and where they can serve as a force multiplier for delivering high quality care. So I think over the next 2 years, there's a real imperative in understanding what's working in this space and making sure that we are scaling up evidence-based interventions that bring high quality care to people.
Great. Well, it sounds like between 988 and tele services, there's a lot coming that can be very helpful to people. I want to ask one question about the prevention agenda, and really curious whether the president's agenda hit some hot button issues. People are worried about their children going online, seeing images that make them feel inadequate, give them anxiety and make them depressed. Does the prevention agenda speak to the challenge of the internet age in this way?
Absolutely. We think it is critical that we build environments that support mental health and wellness. And that includes physical environments and investments in our schools, as well as creating a safer online experience for American young people. For many young people, the internet can provide needed resources and needed connection to other people. And there are certain segments of the population, certainly, where access to social media and other internet-based tools can reduce isolation and help protect and strengthen people's wellness. But we also see that, particularly for young women, but for other groups as well, time on social media can lead to exacerbating these feelings of sadness, inadequacy. And the social media companies' own research shows that they know their product is often not good for the mental health of young people and young women in particular. And so the president has called for Congress to take the steps that we need to take now to protect young people online, to ensure that we're protecting their privacy. We are protecting them from algorithmic discrimination and from ads that target youth and otherwise sort of seek to manipulate young people in ways that don't promote wellness, don't promote recovery, and are ultimately not good for their mental health over the short to medium term.
Now, mental health is often in the background. When the president makes mental health part of his unity agenda, puts it in the State of the Union, announces a whole bunch of actions that the administration is taking even without Congress, and then calls on Congress to do things like you just mentioned, it adds a totally different level of intensity. Why? What do you think that is going to accomplish for the country to have such a high profile for mental health?
The president believes deeply that we need to see change here. And we don't just need incremental change. We don't need $50 million additional dollars for this program and a minor tweak in this law, but rather we need transformational change in the way Americans experience the mental health system in this country. And that's why he has been so forceful in the attention that he and our administration are paying to this issue, as well as calling on Congress to think big, to think expansively about the changes that are needed, to make the investments that are required to dramatically expand our workforce, to build the changes in insurance coverage that create a system where having an insurance card really does give you meaningful access, to make sure that all of our systems think holistically about protecting people's mental health and well-being. These are transformational changes that require sustained attention, and that is very much what we are trying to do through the Unity Agenda and through our mental health strategy.
Well, Kristen Link-Young, thank you so much for telling us all about these important efforts.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Public Health On Call is produced by Joshua Sharfstein, Lindsay Smith-Rogers, and Stephanie Desmond. Audio production by Niall Owen McClusker, Matthew Martin, Spencer Greer, and Holly Cardinale, with support from Chip Hickey. Distribution by Nick Moran. Production support from Catherine Ricardo. Social media support from Grace Holz Fernandez. Thank you for listening.